Good evening, everybody. Hell's Unicorn here once again. This night I'm going to be playing a good bit of catch-up because I've been kind of out of the game for several days and I have actually been falling short on some recent current events that have come up in the past few days. I will be getting to the Fox News Republican presidential primary debate in just a minute, but I just want to cover a few other topics real quick here. First, the dropping out of Jon Huntsman. As far as I'm concerned, it was going to happen sooner or later. I thought that he would probably stick it out for at least another week, but I find it a little bit interesting that he dropped out right before this last debate, and I think the reason why he did was probably because he would have gotten treatment similar to the kind of treatment that Ron Paul got tonight, particularly on the Afghanistan and Iraq war stuff. What I find perplexing about this is the notion that Mr. Huntsman decided to endorse Mitt Romney. From an ideological standpoint, at least as far as Huntsman's and Mitt Romney's professed ideologies during this entire campaign, I cannot think of a bigger contradiction, for lack of a better term, than the notion of Huntsman endorsing Romney. The two have very little in common in terms of foreign policy, other than the fact that they both seem to put off an air of being well-spoken on the topic. Their solutions for our current economic troubles are very different also. Romney is big on teetering around the edges. Huntsman was looking for something a bit more substantial in the tax department, but I don't think that Huntsman was going to be doing any real cuts. So I'm left with a couple of theories, all of them untested and lacking in evidence, but they're what I'm left with here, basically. One theory is that the order to endorse Romney came from Salt Lake City, and that this is a Mormon thing, definitely not outside the realm of possibility. The other possibility is that in spite of being a little bit closer on foreign policy to Ron Paul, Jon Huntsman is still an establishment Republican. He is towing the line, and he is being a good little soldier and taking one for the team. Either one of these is equally plausible. Quite frankly, I don't care. For the past several weeks, I've been on Jon Huntsman for some really nasty campaign ads that he ran against Ron Paul in New Hampshire, questioning his so-called racial views and also his sanity at the same time. Two topics which I think are completely out of bounds in a so-called civil political discussion. And with that comes a glaring hypocrisy, since I believe that Jon Huntsman whined and complained about how nasty the ads were. If you want a good picture of what a negative advertiser is, Mr. Huntsman, take a look in the mirror and take a look at what that man in the mirror did for the past month. Now, with regards to the polling numbers and the recent endorsement that Ron Paul got, this was very good news on this particular front right here. We had a very prominent representative, a state senator to be precise, in South Carolina endorse Ron Paul. This is somebody with strong Tea Party credentials. And let's take a look at this individual. His name is, hold on a second, I gotta look it up here again. I'm not a real expert on South Carolina politics, but yeah, let's see here. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I'll put a link to it in the description. I'm on Ron Paul's page, homepage right now of his website, and he's got the front page loaded up with opposition research on the other candidates. Now, on to tonight's debate. A lot of people, both on the Daily Paul and on Ron Paul forums, two places I frequent pretty heavily, there was a lot of negativity. A lot of these people are probably new to the campaign. They probably just joined this year. Some of them might be 5-year veterans like myself, but either way, the tone was very negative. Everybody says our campaign is over, yada, yada, yada. Grow up, guys. Fox News has never given Ron Paul a fair shake on anything. To be fair, they were almost as rough on Romney tonight as they were on Paul, but it's still not even close. Romney is getting hammered for an alleged economic issue that he has with Bain Capital. Paul is being questioned again and again about his loyalty to this country because of his views on foreign policy, which I think is utterly disgusting. Now, there's 3 points of this debate that I want to hit, and I'm just going to sum this stuff up because I don't want to spend too much time on this because, quite frankly, Fox News is not worthy of this much attention. In regards to the audience, it was very clear that hints of this were given both by Frank Luntz in the after-debate coverage when he said that Newt Gingrich got a standing ovation. You can rest assured that this audience was packed with pro-Newt people. Newt Gingrich has made his biggest play for the state. It's his strongest center of influence. He has the most support here. There was going to be pushback at some point to us and to the others in the campaign by Gingrich, and this is where it is. Gingrich is a slimeball. I've known this for the better part of my tenure as a registered voter, and it doesn't surprise me that he would collude with Fox News to pull something like this. I think that there was a small contingent of Paul supporters in that audience, as there was in previous debates hosted by Fox, but I think they were probably pretty well outnumbered. The scene in this particular debate was particularly ridiculous when we got to the issue of the killing of Osama bin Laden. I am of the opinion that maybe Ron Paul could have handled this just a tiny bit better. He didn't have to wander around as much as he did. But I want to focus on one thing that Paul said, because this is something that plays into the issue of religion. Ron Paul presented everybody in that arena with a choice. I have a feeling that at least 95% of the people in that audience are professing Christians. And Paul presented a very simple stipulation here. Do you believe in the golden rule of love God with your whole heart and love your neighbor as you would like to be loved yourself, as George W. Bush was so fond of quoting? Or do you believe in preemptive war? Do you believe in Christ when he spoke about showing love towards your enemies in the Sermon on the Mount? Do you believe in the concept of meekness, of even when you are very powerful, not flaunting that power like a tyrant? Much of the people of that audience answered with a resounding no. I've long been of the opinion, and this is something that I've gotten into a little bit on my theology channel, John the Jansenist, that the vast majority of American Christians are either of a Pharisee or a Sadducee mindset. Both of them are equally bad, but they're very different from each other. What I saw in that audience as they booed and jeered a reference to the golden rule and to the teachings of Christ was a contingent of frothing at the mouth psychopaths that are more fit to be in a Roman arena than they are in a church pew. I saw people who would probably have been just as gung-ho about nailing Christ to the cross as the high priest was in the gospel story. The people in that arena, I'm not going to call this a debate. No, this was a Roman arena. That's the atmosphere that was on display. These people are purveyors of a blood religion, and the blood of Christ is nowhere to be found in the blood of this so-called religion. There are scores of people running around claiming to be Christians who, when hit with the actual gospel message that is right there in bold print in the Bible, will turn into raving heretics in a single second, and that was what it was on display there. I am going to make a bold assertion right now, but one that is 100% true. Newt Gingrich is no Christian. I'm embarrassed every time I hear him refer to himself as being a Catholic, because that's what I refer to myself as being, because he and I do not believe in the same God. As best I can tell, I'm not sure that he even believes in the God that is spoken of in the Bible. You look into the things that he has written. You look at people that he has endorsed as great intellectuals, such as the Tofflers, people that are raging anti-Christians, and people who are basically technocratic lunatics who think that the future of mankind needs to be controlled through technology and that the Constitution needs to be destroyed. This is no Christian we're dealing with. And I dare say that anybody who is supporting him who thinks that they are actually a Christian needs to think again. And not just about their status as a Christian, but their premise about the religion of Christianity, because they've got it all wrong. I could spend hours going through Bible quotes in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I could qualify everybody on that stage, with the exception of Ron Paul, as being a bunch of bloodthirsty pagans. And I know I have non-Christians on this channel that are probably going to be pissed off by that kind of language, but that's the best way I can sum up, from my viewpoint, what these people come across as. And when I talk about pagans, I'm not talking about people that are just into, the runes and, the stuff involved in Wicca as sort of a side hobby. I'm talking about the people that actually ran some of these ancient kingdoms and these empires, such as Rome and Sparta and so on and so forth. Places where bloodletting was considered a very popular form of entertainment. I mean, in this day and age, we're a bit more civilized, and we have professional football where people manhandle each other and injure each other, but don't quite kill each other in most instances. They're not hacking each other to pieces in an arena for a bunch of Roman plutocrats. In a sense, if you look at history and then you fast forward to right now, we have made progress. The frustrating part is we know that we could be making a lot more. And when you look at this audience, at this debate, that's the feeling that you get. Let's be real here for a second, all right? We, as libertarians and as people who believe that a more peaceful world is possible, feel that we're above these morons that we see on TV standing up and cheering when somebody says bomb Iran. And we're right to do so. But unfortunately, you don't win converts that way. And the truth is that if we're going to prevail in this process, when we get to closed primary states, we're going to need the help of some people that run in these crowds. So these people are going to need to be won over. We have some people that we've won over already. Doug Weed is a prime example of this. This is a person that was right on board with the George W. Bush foreign policy and everything else, and he's made a complete conversion. These people need to be talked to, and they need to be done so in a respectful manner. You're going to have to alter your lingo so it's in a digestible fashion for these people, but it is doable. Trust me. My brother, who was a rabid, staunch Bush supporter, is coming around right now, and I've been working on him for years. It's a slow and painful process, but it is bearing fruit. And now, to the third, and in my opinion, the most salient point of this debate. Mitt Romney admitted on live national television that he would have signed the National Defense Authorization Act into law had he been president. I want to see ads running from every Ron Paul super PAC tomorrow talking about the disastrous consequences that this law is going to have, particularly if we get somebody even more psychotic than Barack Obama in the presidency. Barack Obama is a quasi-nutty Fabian authoritarian. He's not the worst we could have, but believe me, he's bad enough. I've heard people talking that if Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination for the Republican Party, that he should run third party and punish the Republicans. While it's tempting to go along with that stuff, I think this movement needs to think long term here, and we need to realize that we need to have other people to carry the torch after Ron Paul is no longer able to carry it for us. Because let's face it, nobody lives forever in this life. Whether it be Gary Johnson, whether it be Rand Paul, whether it be some of these other people that we've got waiting in the wings, it's got to be somebody. We've built an impressive movement right now, and I don't think that we should scuttle it in a futile third-party venture. Nevertheless, I am perfectly fine with any and all Ron Paul supporters voting for a third-party candidate, or maybe even if somebody like Mitt Romney gets the nomination, voting for Barack Obama. Because as bad as Obama is, there is the potential to do worse. And I think that Mitt Romney would be worse. Not only because he would have signed the NDAA, but because he actually philosophically defended it, saying that we can have these kinds of crazy laws provided we have somebody trustworthy to enforce them. There is no human being on this planet that can be trusted with the kind of power that the Caesars had in Rome. And that is exactly what we're moving towards right now. Can somebody tell me where America went? Because I can't find it right now. That's my reaction when I hear people talk that way. On the whole, I thought Ron Paul did a pretty good job tonight, considering that he was in a room full of hostile onlookers who couldn't keep their mouths shut so that there could be more time actually discussing the actual issues. I think he also did a good job considering the fact that the moderators were not interested in issues. They were interested in playing soap opera politics and having people cut each other up on the stage with leading questions. I'd like to know where the Newt Gingrich of old was, the one who bitched about the media trying to play people off against each other. That Newt Gingrich was nowhere to be found tonight. That Newt Gingrich was long gone. The one that was on stage tonight reveled in the chaos, as did Frothy, as did the lunatic with a pulpit, Rick Perry. These idiots were lapping up this whole scene because the intelligence factor shot way down. But to all of you that are feeling cynical, don't be. Take a look at what's going on Twitter. Take a look at what's going on in other places on the internet. The television generation is dying off. In my opinion, not quickly enough, but they are. The debate footage is being put up on the internet. It's being viewed on YouTube and on other places. These places have comment sections, and on these comment sections, dissent is going on. This is what separates the internet generation from past generations when everybody was a captive audience in front of the television set. I understand why people are getting angry at debate coverage like this, because people can sense that the television programming is directly trying to modify our thoughts and to make us think that we have no hope. Don't fall into that line of thinking. The only way there is going to be no hope is if you don't get out of bed in the morning tomorrow and do everything you can to make sure that Ron Paul has a decent shot at winning this thing. Whatever state you live in, get active, talk to people. Don't talk to one people, don't talk to 10 people, don't cap yourself at one singular number. Talk to as many people as you can. Get involved. All politics is local. Run for local office. That's what I did. I'm now one of the people overseeing the votes in my particular voting precinct, and my precinct has over 1,800 registered voters. I can canvass in here. I can do anything that I want to. The only place where I cannot campaign for Ron Paul is in the polling station itself, because I have to be a silent observer, and I have to, along with all the other observers there, do my job and make sure that the voters know how to vote. But it's not our place to tell us who to vote for. But outside of that one particular day, in that one particular place, I am able to, as an elected official in my locale, campaign for whom I choose. I can also decide how, along with a couple other people in my local Republican Party, we can decide how many campaign signs for each candidate gets put up. And you can rest assured there's going to be dozens of Ron Paul signs in my little precinct here in Pennsylvania, alongside the Romney and whoever else is still left standing by then. I don't see anybody else lasting until Pennsylvania except for Romney and Paul. I think it's going to be those two. Nevertheless, with proportional delegates, it's very possible that there could be 3 or even 4 people still in this race come Pennsylvania, which will be sometime in May. I think that Rick Perry is on his way out. I think he's going towards a disastrous defeat in South Carolina. I think he's not even going to be a factor in Florida. And as far as I'm concerned, the guy is a complete embarrassment, and he would do well not to even allow the possibility for him losing his home state, which is a real possibility given how horrible he's done. I've never liked Rick Perry, but I almost feel sorry for him. That's how terrible he's been doing. So anyway, I'll put a link to the endorsement that I mentioned earlier, and I'll also put a link to a video regarding the Twitter coverage. Ron Paul is kicking butt on Twitter, and almost everybody is on Twitter right now, so much so that the mainstream media is actually forced to report on it. Until next time, with prudence to myself and benevolence to all of you, good evening.